Well, it's that time again, that time when we step into the virtual bar and slide into the first booth that we happen to see and have a chat with whoever happens to be there. I'm joined by Pastor Greg. Ken decided to not be here today for some reason. And I'm your host, Christopher Antone, and this is Three Pastors Walk Into a Bar. Well, we're pretty privileged today to be joined by Dorothy Moon. Dorothy, tell everybody hi.
Hey, how are y'all doing? Good morning.
Glad to have you with you. Thank you for taking some time out of your day. We don't have a whole lot of time with you, so we want to kind of jump right into things. Did you want to tell people a little bit about yourself? There might be quite a few people in our area that don't really know who Dorothy Moon is.
What? Really?
I know, right? Shocker, right?
I'm kidding. No, my husband and I live east of Stanley, off grid, and have since 2005. We live in the middle of nowhere, which is fantastic. But I do have to go into Boise pretty often now in this position as Idaho GOP chairwoman. I was a legislator for 6 years prior to a run for Secretary of State. And I served District 8, the old District 8, which consisted of Lemhi County, Custer County, Boise County, Valley County, and Gem County. I had about 28% of the state geographically. And it's all very rural Idaho, very conservative, hardworking folks. And I was proud to represent them for as long as I did. But then I did segue to run for Secretary of State because of the election integrity issues. I did great up north, and I lost by 3,000 some odd votes. And there were about 16,000 Democrats that flipped over to vote in that election as Republicans. So there was a lot of skullduggery, I guess I'd say, that was going on, but that could be expected. It wasn't illegal, unethical and principled, yes, but not illegal. So after the failed attempt at Secretary of State race, I was asked to run for the Idaho GOP chair position. And 2 weeks before the summer meeting, July 16th of 2022, so it's been a little bit over a year now since I took the gavel, I won sizably by about 150 votes out of 700, which is the most I've ever seen as a Republican person who's been involved in multiple statewide meetings and conventions. So I was very honored to be asked to serve in this position. It is a non-paying position. That's the bad thing about it. I've never worked harder in my life for a job. But anyway, in fact, I just got back from Coeur d'Alene. I was up there a little while ago. I was up in Lewiston just a few days last week for a Republican women's meeting. Then I went down to Weiser on 95 to go attend another Republican meeting. And I went to Twin Falls last Wednesday. It was for a barbecue. With a bunch of Republicans. So then I came out home a couple of days. I'm getting ready to zip off tomorrow to go to Nampa and go talk about the caucus that everybody needs to get involved in selecting our presidential nominee. And then I'm going to be in Buell for lunch with some Republican women on Wednesday. And then I'll be in Gem County, Emmett. And then after that, we've got Sarah Palin coming in to Idaho Falls on Saturday to speak against ranked choice voting. So that's just 2 week lineup to give you an idea of what I do.
Wow. Yeah. So, wow, there's a lot there to unpack. Where to start at? I think I'd like to start with the whole idea of Democrats flipping their registration to Republican to vote in Republican primaries.
Yes.
So you feel like you lost that primary based on that issue. Is that correct?
Well, I think it was, a perfect storm of issues. I was pretty much ahead in the polls 3 weeks out by a pretty good margin, and then came the onslaught of negative advertising that I loved rapists. I'm anti-Semite, I racist. They threw the whole gamut at me and other statewide races. With like Priscilla Giddings running for lieutenant governor, and also Janice McGeehan. The same accusations were made against anybody who was conservative running in the legislature that they tried to take out. So that was pretty unfortunate that politics is as dirty as it is.
Right.
But holy cow, it just seems to ramp up every year. But beating up on a bunch of women, I guess, is the new game in town.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, we're all
anyway.
we're all about women's rights here. So
Equal opportunity beat downs.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I am too. But it's very disingenuous the way they mischaracterize. I was a great. I think I was a great representative for my folks for the 3 terms that I served, and I was very responsive. I helped them out navigate through government regulations, and I've always been responsive to the people of Idaho, and it was just too bad.
Yeah.
But I think I'm in the best position I could ever be in, because in this position I can call out the folks who pretend to be Republicans and aren't, the ones who aren't following our Republican platform, the ones who aren't honoring the Idaho and U.S. Constitution. Constitution. I mean, I think that's really important. So this is probably the best position I could be in. I'm fortunate I get to see good Idahoans just about every day. I'm on the road, or I'm talking to folks who want to talk about their legislators or their county commissioners or what have you, and how we can get people who are going to represent conservative Idaho.
Yeah. So twofold question. Is there an appetite in the Idaho legislature to do something about the registration flipping? And is that something that we should do?
Well, we did as a party. So before, when we register as legislators to file our intentions to run, it's usually the first 2 weeks of March.
Mm-hmm. During
that same period, that's when the Democrats can flip over and vote Republican. Then after after the legislative primary in May, then they flip back to go into the general as Democrats. So what we've done as a party, there was a rule change made in January that would, instead of allowing them March, it was now December 31st. And so this caucus. And
I'm sorry, give me a second. And that change was the one that brought about all the controversy about the potential of losing the, what was it? There was some primary that they were saying that you were trying to exclude voters from by switching that primary.
Oh, the presidential primary.
Yes, the presidential primary.
Issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, but that's a different issue.
Okay.
Let's finish up with those 16,000 little rogue Democrat voters voting as Republicans. We've made it a little more difficult for them to just flip back and forth. And in fact, there's a lot here in Stanley. There's a lot of Democrats that live in the town of Stanley, and most of them are registered Republicans, which I know they're not Republicans. So hopefully, maybe when they get some exciting challenges for president or for other races where they actually have a Democrat contender worth their salt, maybe they'll start going over and voting for their own party instead of coming in and trying to mess around with ours.
Are those 16,000? Are those 16,000 voters related to any type of organization, or are they just loosely affiliated on social media? It seems like they would have to have some type of organization.
I think a lot of them are tied in with the teachers union because they have a pretty good network of getting folks out and telling them that this is what's at stake if conservatives get in. So I think that's probably the only organization I think that was probably actively involved.
But we don't know for sure if there's like a group of them that are like a part of a group, like I don't know, like a Idaho Women's Foundation or whatever, something of that nature, like a foundation or something like that. There's not like any one group that's kind of organizing this effort.
Not that we'd know about, because unlike the Republican Party, who airs all of their dirty laundry in the newspaper, the Democrats don't do that. I got to
Right.
give kudos for that.
Right.
They know how to keep to themselves
Yeah.
and be stealthy. We have to have a few rogue Republicans who repeatedly go to the papers with their opinions and with misinformation, sadly, to get our constituents in Idaho all jumped up. And that is too bad. So in that regard, we need to quit airing all of our dirty laundry, and then maybe we could be a little stealthier too, so the Democrats didn't know what we were up to.
Okay, so let's just pretend for a second that I'm an idiot, which is not too far from the truth. And can you please explain to me how changing the primary actually prevents Democrats from flipping to Republican and then back again? Is it the nearness of the primary? How is that related?
Okay, again, that doesn't have any. Now, the Democrat situation, the flipping Democrats, okay, that's a different topic. What the presidential primary in March, changing it to the caucus, is because we had a Secretary of State who decided in this brand new position of Secretary of State to remove our presidential caucus in March. We just got our presidential primary in March after the 2012 caucus. So we have in 2016 and 2020 had a presidential primary in March where people go to the polls and they vote, and then we figure out how many delegates are going to which candidate. So anyway, it's unfortunate that the Secretary of State brought a bill forward, and that HB 138, and that bill was then carried into the legislature, and I was under the impression it wouldn't show up until March. Well, in February, I was working on things like the transgender mutilation of kids, making sure we don't have college IDs to vote with, and making sure we prohibit ranked choice voting. Those were 3 resolutions that came out of our winter meeting on January 7th in Boise. So I was really encouraged that we had a bunch of new legislators. Dale Hawkins carried one of the bills, the ranked choice voting bill, which was a heavy lift with a new senator, Glenita Zeiderveld, out of Twin. So, kind of helping them on the way to getting things moving. All of a sudden, this bill comes up in the House State Affairs to remove our presidential primary. And it was under the idea that we would save $2.7 million if we didn't have a standalone presidential primary in March, because another bill, House Bill 262, ran concurrently, which removed bonds and levies. And we know how everybody in Idaho hates being hit up for more money for schools it seems like every few months. So they wanted to remove the bonds and levies in March. That it was 2 separate bills. So 138 gets through, and by the time it got to the Senate, and actually Representative Kingsley in the House, when it came to the House floor, got about 10 other legislators, 8 or 10 legislators to vote against it, knowing that this presidential primary in 2024 is going to probably be the most exciting one I've ever been involved in. There's going to be a lot of candidates. A lot of people want Trump back in. A lot of people like DeSantis. And as the Republican chairwoman, I'm excited because I want them all to come to our state and see what Idaho is all about.
Yeah.
My biggest issue is being in Idaho and being a Republican conservative legislator when I was the fact that I was in one of the most conservative states in the West. But as of last year, we have faltered. We went from the 7th most conservative state in the union, down to 23. And a lot of it was because of the COVID lockdowns and the loss of constitutional rights during that period. But I'm telling you, I always have considered Idaho to be very conservative, the kind of state all these refugees want to live in. And then to see us falter as we have has been disappointing. So I wanted to have our primary early enough to where we were relevant in the national race.
Yeah. Do you?
And so the March primary was good. I think everybody, and it's obvious it's been voted on since the state central committee meeting, but people do want to be relevant in that race, because by the time you get to May, well, let me back up. So House Bill 138, the intent was to save $2.5 million and to consolidate the March primary with May when the legislators are voted in. If you historically go and look at all the candidates who have run for president, By the time Super Tuesday happens in that second week of March, everybody else starts dropping off. They already know who the winner is most likely to be. So where we have 12 candidates right now running for president, by the time we get to March 15th, we'll probably be down to about 5.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to weigh in May, by the time you get to May, it is already decided. So why are we voting in May when everybody else has been moving their primaries up earlier to March?
So it's really all about giving Idaho the opportunity to be able to voice their opinion on which presidential primary candidate they would like.
Right. And I think it's important. When I drive up to North Idaho, what do I see all over the place? Trump flags, 2020, 2024, flags about Biden being a bad guy and all that. I'm telling you, there's a lot of Trump flags around here. People are political in Idaho, and that's obvious with bumper stickers, flags, and ball caps and T-shirts. I mean, we're not shy about showing who we support. So I think it's really unfortunate that when this bill was heard, we talked about the $2.5 million savings. So the press has been asking me, so you don't want to save money as a conservative? Sure, I do. But what we weren't given the opportunity to share is how much money comes into a state when you are early in the calendar. So there's 4 states in February. There's always only been 4. That's the way it's always been. So the Democrats have their 4 primaries and we have our 4 primaries. So Nevada is the Western state. I'd like to knock Nevada out, and I want to take their place. I want to be in February. But anyway, to be on March 2nd, that is the date we selected for a caucus, because what happened is House Bill 138 not only removed the March primary, but it didn't put it in May. So right now, in this moment of time, as we're sitting here talking, we have no presidential primary at all in Idaho because the Secretary of State ran a bill that was flawed. The legislature put the bill through. That was flawed. It got to the governor's desk and he signed it.
And
so right now we don't have a presidential primary.
How
doesn't make sense.
How does something that ridiculous happen?
I think maybe they just don't like Dorothy Moon being chair because I'm a conservative, and what would hurt a conservative chair more than to have disarray during the biggest primary election?
But how does that reflect on you if they decide to remove the primary, even inadvertently? How does that reflect on you?
Well, it doesn't. One, I didn't bring the bill forward. I didn't write the bill. I didn't write this flawed bill. 2, I'm not in the legislature. I couldn't carry the bill. I couldn't vote on the bill. And 3, I'm not the governor. I didn't sign a flawed bill.
What was
how it reflects?
Dorothy? What was the bill all about? What did it say that took the primary away?
Yeah, what it said is they wanted to consolidate the presidential primary to the legislative primary in May. And then they did not put the wording in there that it would put it in May.
Okay.
So in the law, you have to be very explicit that you're putting it in May. And that verbiage didn't get in there.
So they removed it out of March and never put it into May.
Got it. Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
A little bit of a boo-boo.
Yeah. So do we have to wait 4 more years to do this if we want to take it away from Nevada?
The Republican Party is taking care of it. So remember how I told you in 2012 we had a caucus. If you weren't involved in that, what that meant is that you would go on a certain day to a certain location, a caucus meeting hall or school or church or what have you, and you would go in, they would close the doors. You would have to show your ID, and they would compare it against the list from the county clerk in your county. And yes, you're a registered Republican. You stay in the room, and then the candidates would come in, or the candidate representatives, and talk to you about why Ron Paul was the best, or Mitt Romney was the best, or what have you. And then everybody would vote, and you would do it in rounds until they got 50% plus 1. For some counties, that was very cumbersome. Some of them went until 1 or 2 in the morning. It was some people liked it, like I did, because we were in Chalice. It was small. We had some cookies. It was fun. And you're there for a couple hours.
Cookies,
but when you're in a larger city, it's a different ball game. And so the Taco Bell Arena was used in Ada County. There were probably 1,000 people there, and it was chaotic. Or 10,000. No, it was about 9,000 people there. It was pretty chaotic. And it went very late. So the problem is that the multiple rounds of voting to get the 50% plus one will not be utilized in the caucus we're proposing. So what has happened is that the state central committee meeting met in Chalice. I held it there, so it'd be close. I get tired of traveling around a lot at Living Waters Ranch.
Who can blame
Everybody loved it. We had a great time there. But anyway, what was decided, we could either, and I had been to two Republican National Committee meetings to discuss the issue that we lost our presidential primary. In fact, they were flabbergasted that a Republican-held state would actually take away a presidential primary when we're trying to get a Republican back in as our president. So anyway, our options were, because of the time frame, it usually takes 2 years to plan out something big, like to do another presidential primary. We don't have the money. We just don't have it, not on such short notice. So the option was either to have another caucus or a convention. A convention is where 700 plus delegates, those are your precinct committee people who are voted in, and they either become delegates or delegates are selected for each county. And so only 700 people would have been voting for our choice for president. I don't think a lot of people in Idaho would have really gone for that at all. They would have been pretty hostile about it. So the caucus is where every county will have one or multiple locations. So like here in Custer County, they will probably have one in Mackay, one in Chalice, and one in Stanley. And it will be at the same time. Everybody will open their doors. There will be volunteers or precinct committee people working, or chairman or state committee man from each county, to make sure that people can go in and vote. Now, unlike the 2012 caucus, this caucus will only last for an hour or two, because you only have one round of voting. You walk in, again, if any candidates, let's say DeSantis or Chris Christie or Nikki Haley or Vivek Ramaswamy, decide to send people, or they know people in this state that support them, they can have them go talk in Kootenai County, or I don't think they're going to make it to Chalice. Anyway, but they might be in Nampa, they might be in Caldwell or Boise or Idaho Falls.
So
they do have
these caucuses then would decide Idaho's elected delegate or candidate. The delegate, those caucuses would send it to the delegate, and then the delegates would select the candidate that we want for Republican representative. Okay, so
Correct.
So hang with me here for just a second, Dorothy, because if I were conspiracy minded, which I'm not, but I happen to be. I would think if I'm just kind of trying to put myself on the side of someone who's looking for the Republican Party to be doing something mischievous and evil, okay? If I were that person, I would look at the bill that was intended on its face to change the primary, but had the unfortunate consequence of removing the primary. And then the Republican Party at that point really has no choice but to initiate a caucus to decide on a primary candidate. But in that caucus, the interesting thing about it is that you have to be a registered Republican to be in that caucus. So it seems like this thing is like kind of making all your dreams come true as far as keeping those, 16,000 or so Democratic flippers from jumping in. But I guess that wouldn't play out, would it? It kind
of does, because in Chalice, we know who our community members are. You know who your community members are. So if you're working at the caucus, believe me, you're going to know who really doesn't belong there.
Sure.
And you could kind of tell. So no, that's really going to prohibit a lot of that switchover voting. And the thing is, you have to be a Republican by December 31st of this year. If you're not one, you better be one if you think you're going to vote in a caucus. in the caucus, because you won't be able to. December 31st, 2023, we will be getting the list from the county clerks, and those will be the ones that will be used on March 2nd for the presidential selection. And that's what we're going to be using.
Is that the party that you're in for the entirety of that next year, or how does that work?
Yeah. So you'll have to be then you're a Republican when it comes down to the May primary, if you expect to vote for your legislative candidates in May.
Okay. So if you decided
so right now, go ahead.
If you decided to switch, if I was a Democrat and I decided to switch Republican to try and mess up the primary, I wouldn't be able to switch back to Democrat to vote in my own primary then.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
But
okay.
you could still vote Democrat in the national election.
Yeah, in the general.
Well, you can vote any way you want in the general. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Doesn't it seem a bit convenient, the timing?
I kind of think so. When given lemons, you make lemonade, and I'm pretty good at organizing things. I do have a master's in resource planning, so I can plan a birthday party and I can plan a caucus. And I'm actually pretty excited about it. The more we talk about it, I think folks are getting excited. Now, there's a downside. There's no absentee ballots. You can't walk in on March 2nd and say, hey, I want to register as a Republican. No can do. You have to be one by December 31st. I mean, if you're already a Republican, you're already Republican, so don't worry about it. But if you've moved into the area, you need to get registered by December 31st. So no same-day registration. There's no absentee ballots. And everybody said, well, what are we going to do about the troops or those in the hospital or confined at home? I'm sorry. The Idaho GOP did not do this to you. The state did. The state took away our presidential primary. We're just trying to give you an option. And I'm telling you, I know it's not going to be convenient for those people who are diehard absentee ballot users. But you know what? Maybe we shouldn't we shouldn't be making absentee ballots as available as we do. There's a lot of problems with absentee ballots when it comes down to, our elections. So we need, I think the idea of being in person, having a paper ballot, and then having it hand counted couldn't be a better scenario. And you know what? Once we pull it off and show the state how to do it, maybe they'll go back to some hand count. I think we should, Custer County, they still do hand count. I think Butte County still does hand count. Idaho, Boise County and Idaho City did do hand count until just 2 years ago, which is unfortunate because it's a small enough population and it's easy to do. So anyway, I think the caucus, we are going to have success. It will be fun. And I think that's what really bothers people. Oh my gosh, they're going to make it fun. Well, it's going to be fun.
So cookies.
They say, oh no, people who work, I'm sorry.
There's cookies.
Oh, there's cookies too, or they can bring cookies. But what's interesting is they say, oh, people who work won't be able to make it. Well, I'm sorry, it's on a Saturday. Okay, so anybody who works Monday through Friday, we all thought Saturday would be the best day. The other thing is that Saturday, the 2nd, is right before the Tuesday, Super Tuesday, when a large number of states have their contest for president, and that's when they start weeding them out. So we will be the 5th state, the 4 in February, and then Idaho. So what does that mean? That means we're going to have a lot of these not contestants, but the candidates for president come to our state.
That was a great slip, by the way. Contestants.
If Trump
that
flies
seems
in,
like it.
If DeSantis goes up north or wants to fly into Boise, we'll accommodate, and I will accommodate all of them. I really will, because I think it's fun that they can come and see our wood products, our Micron. They can go and see the kinds of things we offer with recreation and fishing and hunting and just kind of getting a feel for what Idaho's all about. Yeah. So it is a good way to market Idaho. And when we're talking about the money that comes into a state as the 5th state out of 50, think about it. We're going to have advertisement all over. Okay, that'll drive you crazy. I know the TV ads get kind of old, but we're going to have a lot of TV advertisement, radio advertisement, paper advertisement, motels, hotels, gas, flights. All of this adds up. In fact, Georgia just took the place of South Carolina in February. So they just switched a state for the Democrats because they want to be in Georgia because that's going to be a big battleground state. And so Georgia figured out that they were going to bring in about $35 million economic insertion because of a primary, presidential primary in their state in February. Guess what? We could have a lot of money coming to this state, but we were not allowed because we didn't know the bill was moving back through so quickly to bring those points up. That it's the 2.5 million they're talking about saving is nothing compared to the influx of money coming in with all of these candidates to meet with Idahoans.
Yeah, you know, those guys that are in office, they're not stupid. A lot of these guys are successful businessmen. A lot of these guys have degrees. You know, these guys are not morons. It makes me feel like there's something else going on when a bill gets through that doesn't have a primary attached to it. Do you think there's any other kind of motive involved in getting the primary out?
Well, you know, maybe it's the candidates. You know, maybe we have 32 delegates. That's actually quite a bit for being less than 2 million in population. And the reason why we have so many delegates is because we have a high percentage of Republicans that vote. Our geography, how large we are. There's all kinds of bonus delegates for different reasons. So 32 delegates is sizable, and it is worth fighting for, especially when you're in early primaries, because then those start adding up. And once you win a state, then you have the momentum to go on and win the next state. So maybe, I don't know, you know, that has come up. People have brought up, well, why would they want to take away your presidential primary? If we didn't have a primary at all, and I said, Idaho GOP doesn't want to do a caucus, we're just not even going to do anything, then guess what? Those 32 delegates are gone. Yeah. And who would they more than likely have gone to?
Yeah. Interesting.
So I don't know. There's a lot of people thinking about why would they have brought this up? Why didn't they wait till right before 2028? Why did they bring it up right before the 2024 primary? It's just unfortunate because it's really disenfranchised. Well, just by the passage of that bill, disenfranchised the entire state. Because the Democrats and Republicans both don't have a presidential primary now. So now there's talk about the governor or the legislature can call themselves in if they have 60% of the legislators who want to come in and address this issue. So that would entail, I know a letter has already gone out to the senators from the pro tem saying, how many of you would sign a petition to come in and put the primary back in May? Fix the boo-boo in House Bill 138. However, the State Central Committee, the 229 members of the State Central Committee are the governing body of the Republican Party. At the meeting in Chalice, they were very clear. They wrote a resolution. The resolution stated that House Bill 138 needs to be repealed, give us a presidential primary. Yeah. That was one thing that was passed. The second thing passed was a rule change. So in our rules, it says that we have a presidential primary. Well, the legislature just took away our presidential primary. So we had to change our rules to remove the presidential primary, because they did, and put in either a caucus or convention, and the caucus was voted on. The rule change explicitly says that the Idaho Republican Party would support the repeal of House Bill 138 and the return of our March primary. And if the legislature doesn't repeal 138, the Idaho GOP will caucus to determine our delegates for the national convention. We're very clear about it. In fact, one member of the Republican Party tried to make a motion to say, oh, you mean to put the primary in March or May? It was shot down very quickly. No, we want to be relevant in this national race. Yeah. We only want them to repeal HB 138 and give us back March. So the Republican Party has made themselves clear. This isn't Dorothy making her voice. I didn't even vote on it. I run the meetings, but the people are adamant. We are going to be relevant. That we finally got our primary in 2016 and 20 in March. It was a fight. It was a fight to get the primary closed so that Republicans could only vote for Republicans and not allow Democrats to come in and vote in our primary. Why are they choosing? In fact, that was even challenged in federal court before Judge Windmill. And Judge Windmill ruled on the side of the Republican Party. We have a right, a constitutional right, to associate with people of like kind in parties such as Republicans. Democrats, you associate. We associate.
Yeah.
We do what we want to do and what's best for our party. You do what's best for your party, but do not cross over. And so that was so we could close our primary, and Judge Windmill concurred. So for this Reclaim Idaho now to bring this initiative that's going to open the primary, that is bad, very bad, in contrary to what a federal judge has already ruled.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what the whole we don't have time for that conversation now, but the whole Reclaim Idaho thing, they're wanting to, what are they wanting to do with the primary?
They want to open our primary, where we just got it closed after the 2012 caucus. And it was a lot of work to get it there. I wasn't involved in that. There were a lot of people that were involved in getting it closed. And then the other part of it is to bring ranked choice voting forward. So in the initiative, there's actually 2 issues, and we're only supposed to have 1 issue in each initiative. So these are some of the things that came up in the Supreme Court last week in their ruling.
Right.
But the ranked choice voting is the all-encompassing, most dangerous thing. The fact that we lost our primary through the legislature is highly unfortunate. But you know what? One thing I want to tell you too is they can't fix it now. The talk of them coming in for a special session to fix it, like September 15th, we have been very clear that the Republican National Committee must have our plan for our presidential contest approved by the RNC by October 1st. So if we don't have our plan for our caucus, we've already submitted the plan for the caucus. After the meeting, we worked on it and got it all pulled together on how we were going to pull this off. And we've already submitted it to the RNC. Once the RNC adopts it and says, okay, Idaho, you're rolling, you can do the caucus on March 2nd, blah, blah, then we run with it. But they even if they were to put the May primary back in September, we're still doing the caucus because we're not going to do it in May. We've already said that from the summer meeting in that resolution and rule change.
Yeah.
So to call a special meeting cost about $400,000 to have the legislature come in for a day. But, we've been awash with federal money for so long, $400,000 is nothing. Excuse me. But anyway, I would suggest if their intent is to put it in May for the 2018 presidential primary, you might as well wait till you're back in session in January.
Yeah. Because
no matter what, from this moment on, we're going to do a caucus. Not unless you repeal HB 138 and give us back the March primary. That's what the Republican Party has stated. I guess a lot of them forget that the Republican Party is who supported them and put them in office.
Yeah, yeah. And to want anything other than just to replace what we had currently or what we had previously would be suspicious anyways.
Well, it is kind of weird. Okay, so I mean, they were out in March. And now, here we're, in August, and September 15th, they want to meet for a special session. I don't think there's an appetite for it, though, based on a lot of the senators that I've already spoke to. They said, no, we're not going to come in and just put it back in May because since they came out of the legislature in March, a lot of these legislators have been told by their constituents they're not real happy about losing their presidential primary. They're not happy about it at all, and they want it in March. Nate Shellman was on the radio at KBOI and did a survey. Everybody said, no, I want to keep it in March. I want a presidential primary in March. But, some people are just really wanting to put it in May. Yeah. And I guess, it seems like the state government spends a lot of money on some frivolous things, and they don't want to spend $2 million for really, which is government's job, to make sure we have free and fair elections as needed. And I guess they don't want to do it. But we will do it. The Idaho GOP, we're a private organization. And we want Republicans to vote for our presidential candidate. We want the will of Idahoans to be explicit in who they pick for delegates. And if one candidate gets 50% plus one on March 2nd in the evening when everything's totaled up, they get all of our delegates. If they get 40%, 30%, 20% or less than 15%, they don't get any. But 15% and above, it will be proportional. So our 32 delegates will be divvied up. And that's how it works. But I do think that we'll probably have someone who will carry the day. If people get here to the state, it's amazing how that really moves a lot of Republican voters.
Give us your predictions. Last thing, and then we'll give you the last words, and then you can, and then we'll close it down. But give us your predictions. What does the presidential election look like coming up?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, Trump, they're trying to keep him in litigation, nonsensical litigation. It's obvious, I think, to everybody what's happening. Mm-hmm. He's a fighter. DeSantis has been out there trying to get his message out. I think that Vivek Ramaswamy is a pretty intelligent young man and entrepreneur. And everybody who has seen him, at least legislators who have seen him speaking at events back east, at conferences, they're very impressed with him. So, and you never know. I mean, some of these presidential candidates, two of them get together and one can be the VP. Now, we just had an event with Carrie Lake in Boise and 900 people showed up. And I'm telling you what, she's VP material. People love her. She's brilliant. She's been fighting this election integrity issue after running for governor in Arizona and losing to a flaming socialist. I mean, she is amazing. What a treat. And that's the good thing about this job. I may not get paid, but I meet some phenomenal patriots, and she is one of them. And then we have Sarah Palin coming to Idaho Falls this coming Saturday on the 19th. At the Melaleuca Event Center to talk about ranked choice voting. And I've met Sarah before at the RNC meeting when they voted on a new chair or for the chair position.
That'll be a good meeting. Is that going to be televised, or is there going to be any information coming out about that meeting? I'd love to hear what she has to say about ranked choice voting.
Right. I don't think it'll be televised. We might record. We'll have someone probably record it like we did the Carrie Lake event, and then we cut the snippets so it's not full length, but it'll be about down to 20 minutes of the highlights of it. And we had some videographers that did this at the Carrie Lake event, and they came across, they were really good.
Is that going to be on the Idaho GOP website?
Yes.
Okay.
It will after we get it put together.
That'll be exciting.
So so Sarah Palin's great because she just lost her congressional race in Alaska because of ranked choice voting. And I do understand that Alaska is contemplating repealing ranked choice voting because more people than not now want to get rid of it because it's confusing. You're ranking people. You don't even, you don't want to put some people's names on, a ballot of 4 people, and you have to really put people you don't like down as number 4 or 3. No, you one man, one vote. You go in and vote. That's how it's supposed to work. Why make it confusing? We have enough election integrity issues to where we don't need to, the person who only comes out a couple times a year to go vote, we don't need to confuse them on what's happening.
No, that's kind of the point, though, isn't it, Dorothy? The more complicated you make something, the easier it is to manipulate.
Sure. Sure, it is. Mm-hmm. It is, and it shouldn't be that way. And that's why I'm excited about the caucus, having these paper ballots that are embossed. And they get one vote, just go check somebody off, and then you can walk out the door after you vote. You're not on lockdown for 8 or 9 hours, as some of the newspapers are saying. Total misinformation. It should take an hour, max 2. Depends on if there's candidate representatives there. And then we're going to hand count them. Then we'll canvass them and recount them again. But we'll have a good idea of who won, of course, by the end of Saturday. But we're going to all start at the same time. So North Idaho will start an hour at 10 o'clock, and that's probably 11 o'clock in the morning. And people just go in. It's nothing more than like going to a fast food restaurant and sitting down and eating for an hour. I'll be on the radio, and people will say, well, I don't have 2 hours in a day to go to a caucus meeting. I thought, well, people make choices. And if you don't want to be involved in selecting our next presidential candidate for the Republican Party, That's unfortunate, because that really says a lot about how we become so, we made voting so easy, where everybody can get an absentee ballot and then not even really look at the day we go vote. I think election day should be a fun thing. We used to give our employees 2 hours off to go vote on election day.
Yeah.
That's what we used to do. It's a sense of community too. I mean, there's a lot of folks who work the polls every year, and it's a fun thing for them to make a little coin, and then they have some pizza and they get to see everybody in the community. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be about, community. And then when the bad characters come in or trying to upset the apple cart and have get a bunch of Democrats to come in and vote or whatever. That's how you do it. That's the safety measures we need in our elections.
It does seem to me that there is a large movement to try and isolate and separate people from community.
There is.
Yeah, and I would say that we and speaking about our legislatures, we've got some great ones here in our district, our legislatures and our churches and our businesses, we really need to push against that by just bringing community together. It's really the only thing we can do.
Right, and I'm really proud the churches are getting more involved. Down in Boise, I had a luncheon with, probably 15 different churches, the larger churches in the Boise area. They're not going to sit back and watch this country fall. They are engaged, and it's very exciting. The porn in schools, the gender mutilation of kids. I mean, we got that bill through, but there's still some surgeries going on that we need to be we shut down. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we need everybody united. And the folks, at the churches, you have to become part of the team, because we need you badly. We're losing into this societal decay that is going to ruin our state if everybody doesn't get involved.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dorothy, thank you for joining us. Do you have any last words? Do you have any last things that you'd like to say to our listeners before you head out?
Well, get involved. Go to your county GOP website. Kootenai County, Benewell County, Shoshone County, Latah, wherever anybody's from up there that, frequents your location, your church and your area, get involved. And if, support your candidates. I'd rather see people give $5 to a good candidate for a couple of yard signs than not, because then there's buy-in. Then I know you're going to show up and go vote, and you're going to take your family members or friends to go vote. So please get involved, because we are in the fight of our life right now. And if we get ranked choice voting in this state through an initiative, we will turn Democrat within 2 years. That is a guarantee. And that's what happened in Colorado. It's the exact same playbook, and I'm seeing it, and it is frightening. So we just have to keep the messaging. We need to keep talking in our groups and our churches and our grocery stores or wherever you're at, and just say, that ranked choice voting is bad. And don't sign a petition when someone says, you want free and fair elections. Walk away.
Yeah, because we already have that, other than the primary.
Yeah, right. We want that primary. March. We want March. We like March. Primary or caucus, but we're doing the caucus.
Yes. Well, Dorothy, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and appreciate what you're doing. And we'll definitely have to get you back, because we got a lot more questions. But we know you're a busy lady, so we do appreciate your time. And thank you very much.
You're welcome. I enjoy it. Yep,
Awesome.
we got to get the word out.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you very much. We'll definitely talk with you later.
Okay, you have a great day. We'll talk to you later.
All right,
bye-bye.
Well, that about does it for us today. And as always, we thank you for joining us. If you have a comment or a question or an idea for an episode, send us an email to 3p@ethelbaptistchurch.org, and Greg will answer all of those emails.
Negative. But I will see that Ken does.
If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, share it with all your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And thanks to Ethel Baptist Church and its members for generous support of this ministry. And again, thank you for listening. And until next time, remember the Great Commission. Go into all the world, reach the lost with the gospel, and build disciples who can do the same. And with that, we are out.